Welcome. I'm Michael McDonnell. I am the cybersecurity librarian, and I don't know how to do an intro even after over a dozen episodes. This is my co-host, Moro Arikaki. I don't hear you, Moro. Yeah, I can hear you.
There we go. See, look at that. Oh man, this is great. Bloopers reel material.
You know, this whole every 2 week schedule, we forget how to do this.
Oh, I know.
This is
That's okay. We only really do this for fun. If we were professionals, oh man, I don't know what we'd be doing.
I'm a professional. Look, I have lights.
That's true.
It's my Halloween theme. It's October.
Oh, man.
Okay, so before we start, it's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, which is cool. I've already done one talk. I'm doing another one next week. This show doesn't have a Cybersecurity Awareness Month thing, but the other talk I'm doing, they're playing up a Halloween theme, and it's in 15 years of doing Cybersecurity Awareness Month, I've never clued in that it leads up to Halloween. So my other talk is the Cybersecurity Monster Manual, defeating things that go hack in the night, because they're doing a Halloween theme.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Yeah. So now, for October, I'm doing orange instead of
sweet.
Yeah, instead of the standard Twitch streamer purple. There we go.
Oh, anyways.
Hey, so Moro, this is part 2 of the mentorship stream
that's right.
You've been planning for a really long time. So tell us what we're doing.
Yeah. So if for all of you that were watching the last time, I had my friend Patti on, kind of talking about mentorship and some of the things that she's been involved in terms of helping people. I'm going to say not just rise to the occasion, but kind of take that next step in their career. And today we're continuing with that talk, and we were fortunate enough to find someone who is a part of an organization here in Calgary that matches mentors with mentees. So we're going to bring her on, let her introduce herself. We're going to go into the discussion of what her organization does and some of the things that she's experienced as a mentor. And hopefully for some of you that are in the audience that have any questions about how to find a mentor or what a mentorship program might mean, we'll have the chance to ask our guests. So I'm super excited. Again, this is a topic that I think Michael and I definitely find very intriguing, very passionate about, because we feel that, a lot of people out there are probably stuck in that, rut of figuring out what do they want to do and how do they get there. And we feel that mentorship is one of those things that can definitely help you progress, not just in your professional career, but maybe even on a personal level. So
I'm also excited about this because, it doesn't matter if it's about mentorship, about other professional development issues. I think our most successful and helpful live streams have been when we bring someone who is not from IT or cybersecurity in. And, Patti was sort of a person who bridged that gap throughout her career, but we've had a disproportionate number of HR professionals. And what really excites me tonight is that this is someone who's doing mentorship for business communication professionals. I was just at the Financial Services ISAC Summit this week. Oh, no, sorry. Different summit. ISACA Summit just in the past week. And the best talk I heard was actually from someone who is a communications professional who does crisis communications. And so on the one hand, our guest tonight is outside our profession, but you know what? Not really. It's actually dead center for the kinds of things we do. So anyways, you know what? Let's bring Kirsten on. Hey, Kirsten.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes,
we can.
I was going to say that was really nice of you. I was having technical difficulties with my mic before, so I appreciate you both making me feel a little more comfortable with your mutage.
Yes, that's exactly why we did it.
So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much, and thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Sure. No, we appreciate you coming on. So and helping us cover this topic. So I guess just to kick it off, if you don't mind, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Great.
And, describe what you do.
Awesome. So I am a communications professional myself, and my name is Kirsten McVeigh, and so I work with the IABC Calgary in Calgary, which is the International Association of Business Communicators, as you mentioned. And so I've been actually volunteering with the Mentorship Program and having participated in the Mentorship Program in Calgary for the last few years. But this year I was really excited to join the board and to organize the program from that capacity. So I'm really passionate about mentorship as well, and I've been lucky to see how it's impacted some people in our community and heard lots of great stories about it. So I'm really excited to chat about it today, and hopefully it's helpful for some people watching.
Awesome. Thanks for the intro. So Michael, I think this is probably a time about mentorship in general, and maybe even amongst us three, kind of describe what certain aspects of mentorship have done before we dive into getting to know what Kirsten's organization does and how they go about helping people match mentors with mentees. So you know what, I'll start since I'm the one that brought this thing up. I'll say over a career I've been fortunate enough, I think, to have more or less informal mentors, so people that might have helped me along my career path at certain strategic points in my life. I do know that at one point in my life, I signed up for a mentorship program. It wasn't a one-to-one mentorship, though. It was more like a course-style mentorship, if you could call it that. So I would have correspondence. They would send me material, and then they would help me focus on my goals, writing my goals, achieving my goals, and then following up on that. So it was a little bit more long distance, and it wasn't like a one-to-one type thing. Although I will say this much, for as expensive as I thought it was at the time, and almost probably a waste of money in my mind, I did get one thing out of it. And the one thing I did get out of it was that it's very important to have goals. It's very important to write the goals down. It's also very important to follow up on how far you've progressed in your goals. So again, it was probably not the right style of mentorship for me at the time. But needless to say, I did come out of it thinking afterwards that actually it was pretty good. So
Great.
Okay. So with that in mind, I'm going to ask you, Kirsten, or how have you had mentors throughout your career, your life? How have they affected you? And in terms of your career, how have they helped you?
Yeah. So I'm kind of the opposite of you in that my first kind of formal experience with mentor was through the program. Okay. And so it was kind of a weird way that came around. I was at work, they were launching a mentorship program in my actual workplace. And my boss actually at the time suggested that I maybe, instead of going through the workplace, go through the IABC, just because it was a bit more focused on my area. And so that actually led me to actually joining IABC in general. And the first mentor that I had, I met her through that program, and basically it's a huge part of how I became on the board and where I am now. But also I still, the program is, we can get into it a little bit later, but it's a set program. It doesn't last much more than a year, but I still will reach out to her if I'm experiencing something or maybe need some advice or have some growth opportunities or those kinds of things. And so it's something that, is kind of like in your back pocket, a toolkit that you can access at any time. So I found it to be really, really helpful for sure.
Okay, awesome. So in respect, though, I guess, and we'll go into it, and I'll touch on something that Patti mentioned. So
Sure.
A mentor wasn't really there to network with, right? Like, so they weren't there so that you could leverage their network. They weren't there to basically say, oh, use my resources and then, get ahead.
For sure.
It was more there, more or less, they were there to help you with guidance. They were maybe some motivation. But at the same time, kind of keep you on track for, what goals that you had intended to try and achieve, right? So.
For sure. Yeah, no, I agree. I think that is a pitfall that I think something that you might not think as a mentee is that it's a very active role. You're not going to someone and they're going to, impart their wisdom. I think to get what you need to get out of a mentorship, as you mentioned, Moro, you really have to understand why you're seeking a mentor in the first place, but also have a really active role in that. If you're looking for a job, it's not, using their contacts to get that job. It's how can they help you to take actions for you, to take that next step to get the job or the promotion or the skill that you're kind of looking for.
For sure. Okay, Michael. So I guess, to you, would like to hear your story about mentorship.
So, when I started my career, I really felt like I was on my own, and like many people in IT and cybersecurity, I was self-taught, took pride in that aspect. The concept of mentorship was completely foreign, and in fact, I think I wouldn't have accepted it or recognized it if I saw it. But about 10 years into my career, I was in a job, my first full-time cybersecurity job, and I had a whole lot of things I wanted to accomplish, but I realized I couldn't do them on my own. And the things I wanted to accomplish could only be done by a team. And I looked around and I looked at my coworkers and I thought, well, they're not interested in what I'm doing, and they've got their own things. Some of them are not motivated. Some of them aren't interested. And I went down the path of what we would call peer mentorship. So I realized I needed to take an interest in everyone on my team and their development, their interests, what they wanted to be excellent at, and then help them with that. And before you know it, I'm helping with people with things that aren't related to specifically to my goals, but I'm helping them get better, and they're taking an interest in what I'm doing. And that was my first experience with mentorship, where it was a group that every single day helped each other be a little bit better at what they were doing. And then whenever we had a common goal, we were a high performing team. And it wasn't until a few years later that I reflected and realized, why have I not had mentors in that traditional sense, and realized other professions had a history with mentorship. It was normal, but that in IT, in security, this was foreign to us, and that we needed to start doing that. And that was actually also the point at which I realized I was a professional, not just a practitioner, not just a technical person, that there was something more, and that this was true of all the people around me as well. It was the concept of starting to think about what mentorship could be was fundamental to me succeeding in my career.
Okay. Yeah, no, and that, you know what, that dives into like a really good topic in terms of what does mentorship mean. And I'm going to start with an anecdote, I guess, and I did mention it in the other live stream, is that, you know, I think and I feel that mentorship actually in North America is almost a forgotten art. You see in other cultures, and again, you know, since my parents are Japanese, I have a Japanese background. You take a look at Japan, for example, mentorship is still pretty strongly ingrained in the society there. You know, all the way, you know, starting from as early as grade school, there's this concept of, you know, someone that's, I guess, an upperclassman. And the idea is that, you know, that upperclassman will look out for the person, you know, that's a grade lower or whatnot. And it permeates throughout, you know, grade school, all the way into university and post-secondary education, all the way into the workforce. There's this whole concept, and they call it a senpai, or like the person below you're just a guy or gal. You'd be the kohai, and the senpai would be the person that's above you that has more experience. And you could go to the senpai for advice on almost virtually anything work related, sometimes even personal related. So I feel like, you know, that's something that our culture doesn't really embrace anymore, and it's a lost art, and it's unfortunate because really, I feel like, you know, current generations are kind of lost and they don't really know how to proceed forward. So that's my anecdote about mentorship. So I'm going to ask that question to Kirsten, who is obviously had experience being a mentor and a mentee, to kind of describe her take on what mentorship really means.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a really interesting point. So, in a very basic way, I think a mentorship is a professional, typically relationship between someone who has more time or skill in a particular area. So that's, you know, kind of your very basic definition of it. But I think that was a really interesting point you made, Moro. And we had one of our pairs last year write a really great article kind of summarizing their experience, just to let people know what it was about. But I think that vulnerability is a really big part of it as well. And it's actually a vulnerability on the part of the mentor and the mentee, because as a mentee, you're saying, and like you said, it's a bit of a lost art, you know, not that you need, I mean, we all need help, not necessarily that you need help, but that, you know, there's things I can learn, you know, and we're also, especially at work, we're taught to be so confident, or, you know, that maybe it's wrong to say I'm not totally sure about that. So there's definitely a vulnerability on the part of the mentee, but also the mentor. So again, going back to that article, the mentor actually mentioned kind of that whole imposter syndrome thing, where it's like, am I, and again, kind of what Michael was saying, you know, I'm in a place now where I could be a mentor. And that there's a thing where there's an aspect of that that's also very vulnerable, because you're putting yourself in maybe that professional role as well. So I think it's a really interesting concept, mentorship, in that, you know, it's a technical skill. It's, you know, I want to learn how to do such and such, or something like that. But it's also a very personal journey of opening yourself up to someone. Trust is a really important part, and you're not going to get anything out of that relationship unless you're able to say, you know what, I need help in this area, and to be fairly vulnerable with somebody as well.
Okay, so with that in mind, then, I guess, what would you say, like, a person should kind of try to ask themselves? Are they really ready for a mentor? Like, what are some of the things that they should consider? I mean, obviously, you know, being a bit more vulnerable, and I think, you know, vulnerability is a good thing in some ways, because I think it also displays, you know, genuineness, right, and honesty about, you know, how you are, or how you feel, or your perception, and how others perceive you. So I guess my question is, what should, like, someone, you know, who's possibly looking at a mentorship relationship as a mentee, what should they be asking themselves? Like, is it like, you know, are there any specific things that they should be thinking about before they kind of say, okay, yeah, I think I'm ready for a mentor?
Yeah, for sure. So the first time, to be quite honest, which I don't know if it was the right approach, when I first went into the mentorship program, it was offered to me, and I kind of said, well, why wouldn't I want to do that? Which, is a starting point. But I think too, like you said, I think having a goal in mind is a really good way to do it, because it really can help structure what you're looking for. And so I think it's interesting because mentorship can be we were talking about this earlier, it can be someone within your field, I want to learn more. And as you mentioned with IT as well as in communications, sometimes you might have a really great team with you and a really great boss, and sometimes you're the only person with that role on your team. And so it's important to that you're maybe looking to get some mentorship help within your realm. But maybe it's also a really good friend of mine, I was chatting with her, in preparation for this conversation that we're having. She, in her workplace, worked in oil and gas, and was looking to maybe grow some of her leadership skills, and through a network at work actually reached out to someone who was in a more leadership position, and completely unrelated field, but she was actually looking to improve her leadership skills. So I think having an idea of where you're wanting to go in your career will really help you if you're looking to do mentorship, because it's really going to inform what you're looking for. We have a very formal process, which is to sign up for it, which kind of forces you to do that a little bit. But I think in anyone's life, you have to ask yourself, what am I looking to do next? Maybe it's a skill. Maybe you're looking for a job. And I think that would really inform the kind of mentor that you're looking for. So to have some clarity for yourself, I think would be really important.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Rob has a great question here. And I think, in our last live stream on mentorship, we got into this a bit. One of our former guests on our very first live stream talked about how he had actually hired a series of mentors. Kirsten, is anything lost in a mentorship relationship when it's transactional or when it's a paid mentorship?
That's a really interesting question. So, for IABC Calgary, it's not a paid relationship. But you do have to be a member to be part of the program. So there is a fee associated with that, but then you get whatever other benefits. There's other benefits in terms of events and networking and that kind of thing. In terms of losing the integrity of it being transactional, I'm going to assume that if you're paying for, I'm just going to preface this with, I have not had a lot of experience with a paid mentorship program where you're paying a direct mentor, but I would hope that if you did your research looking into that program, and they would be offering a service that you wouldn't have been able to get on your own, and that you'd hopefully be getting access to some really high quality mentors who really know what they're doing. And so I think that would be completely up to you if you felt like you were getting the value out of that, and just making sure that you were looking into why am I paying more for this? If, like Moro mentioned, a lot of times you have you might be able to build a relationship in your life or reach out to somebody. And so I would just make sure that if you're paying for that service, that that you're getting that added value that you wouldn't be able to get on your own.
Yeah. Just, I'm going to be speaking for someone who's not here.
For sure.
One of our previous guests, but so a friend of the show, Neil, speaks really highly of paid mentorships, but and again, I'm speaking for him and he might disagree. The things he highlighted were actually the goal setting.
Yeah.
And I think it doesn't matter whether it's paid or not, but that's, and the funny thing is, to me, I never thought about mentorship being about having someone explicitly helping you with goals in a structured way.
Mm-hmm.
But for Neil, that really helped his career. In the program that you offer, what's the nature of the structure?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. So we have a fairly structured program in the way that it's set up. So people actually apply to the program, and we're in that process right now. Our applications close on Sunday, and we actually have we have a volunteer on the program who's been doing it for years, and she actually takes all the mentors and all the mentees, and based on different criteria that they've set forth, actually pairs you with who she sees as good pairs, just based on the criteria. And then we have a very formal, everyone gets together at the beginning, and we have kind of an introduction. We have a package that we give people that kind of gives them tips about mentorship, and we give them an opportunity to set goals. Now, in terms of what you're talking about a little bit about the goal setting, that's a little bit more within the pairs themselves. We've had people who have, these are my 3 goals, and this is how we're attaining them, and this is how often we're meeting, and some people are more comfortable with that structure. And other people have a little bit more of a loose structure, but generally we just say that people are to meet at least for an hour every month for that period. And so it's really however they choose to make that time work best for them. We've had, people who are wanting to get together in a really formal basis. It's an hour and we're discussing our goals, and some people have really built, and some people have more, not more fun with it, but it might be a bit more of an informal meetup where it's just, I'm having this issue at work, I'd like to talk it through, or whatever that is. So we don't designate that specifically, but I can completely understand where that formal process would work really well for certain people, especially if you have a really specific goal you're trying to obtain.
That's interesting because, in Neil's, he was very, very focused on career development goals. Now, Lisa has just brought up a topic that this one blows me away. And I know Lisa and I have talked about this before. So she said, everyone needs a board that is a collection of mentors who bring different skill sets and meet different needs. Do you have any thoughts on this or how to do it?
For sure, yeah. I had a chat with someone not too long ago who is a business owner, and that's how they structured a lot of their insights when they were starting that business, was that they actually collected a whole group of people that they would refer to, and that's how they chose to go about it. I thought it was a really interesting process because I'd only ever seen, we have people who enter the mentorship program multiple times, and they will get a new mentor every time. But in terms of having multiple mentors, and I think it's a really interesting idea, and kind of what we were talking about before, different mentors might be for different purposes, but if you have a lot of goals at the same time, it would definitely be beneficial to have people of different skills that you could refer to at any time. Now, in terms of building that up, I thought that would be interesting. I think you'd have to look at your networks and really kind of pinpoint what you were looking for, but maybe on a larger scale. Is it if you're doing a business, is it an economic, is it a career development, is it leadership, and maybe start working from there.
Okay. So I guess going kind of back a little bit. So we kind of talked a little bit about sort of the expectations from the mentees. So we kind of have an idea of what we expect, but what do we expect as a mentor? I guess, like mentees looking for some sort of guidance. We understand that, but as a mentor, what do you get out of it? Like what as a mentor, what do you expect the mentee to do?
For sure. So the way that we structure our program is very much, as I mentioned, very mentee led. So our expectation within the program is that the mentors do get a lot out of the program as well, but at the end of the day, they are giving kind of their time and their expertise to somebody, and so they're in a bit more of a volunteer position than the mentee. And so our expectation within the program is that, and I think this would also work, especially in an informal situation. If you were hoping to get something out of someone in maybe an informal setting in your day-to-day life or your workplace, I think for you to make it as easy as possible for the mentor is probably your best bet, because really they're giving you their time and expertise. And so we always say, and so we always say that really the mentee should be in charge of kind of maybe setting up the meetings and being prepared with what they're looking for. And financially, it's even. So no, I think that's really important. Sorry, not in terms of the paid mentorship, which we were chatting about, but within our program, no one should feel like they have to buy coffee for the other person. So that aspect of it is really off the table. And then in terms of the mentor, I think it's the expectation of the mentor is really just, am I able to offer this person what they're looking for, and to come in with as open a heart and mind as possible to make sure that they're able to deliver what they're looking for. And I think trust too, I think trust is really important on both sides, but especially when a mentee is entrusting, maybe, if it's technical skills, that's one thing, but if I'm entrusting you as well with really personal information about my workplace, am I struggling with my employer, or am I struggling with some of my colleagues? I think as a mentor, it's really important that you build trust with that person, because I think it's impossible to have a good mentorship relationship without that trust element.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. So actually kind of dive a bit into it. So as
Sure.
a mentor though, like, I know you kind of mentioned lately, you get something out of it as a mentor. Yeah. I'm kind of curious from your personal experience.
Yeah.
Or any, time where you felt like, oh, wow, my mentee just did so awesome. Or, maybe they gave me like some inspiration to do something else or
Right.
look into something further. Was there ever a time you had that moment, that aha moment? Oh, I'm getting rewarded for all this, effort I've put forth to help someone else out.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to think. I've not formally participated in our program as a mentor. I'm just trying to think back about if I've had a moment of that. We do a lot of looking back and having people reflect on their experiences and write about that. And I do think that I think thinking about things differently is maybe the number one comment that I've gotten, because you can be in a field for many years and maybe think about things in a certain way, and the number one comment that I've gotten is that that person has made someone think about something in a different way than they thought before. And I know that some of our mentors get a lot out of it, because as I mentioned, a lot of people will come back, and we have a lot of returning mentors who come back to the program many years as well. So I know that the mentees are getting a lot out of the program, but the mentors also see a lot of value in it, and it feels good, as well, just to know that, because like I mentioned, it is a volunteer. It really is a volunteer job for them as well. So it's a really nice way to also feel like you're giving back.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's actually quite important in any career setting, is to try and give back, right? And I think some of this live stream actually was born from that idea and that conversation that Michael and I had, that we want to help our friends, especially the ones that are kind of struggling to find work and or progress further in their careers. And with all the collective knowledge that we have between not just the two of us, but in our group of friends, and try and share that with other people that might be struggling or in the same position as well. So hopefully they're watching this live stream and learning some cool stuff about mentorship, and they'll definitely consider it. So
there's a comment I really want to make in that regard. So years ago, I used to give this guest talk at SAIT, technical school, to the IT graduates. And I'd go and talk about the career paths in cybersecurity. So why would someone do that? I would do it because I looked and there was two motivations, and one was, you know what? In IT and cybersecurity, there are certain things in our profession that are toxic. And I looked at it and I said, I would like to have better and cooler coworkers. And I'm not going to find those cooler coworkers unless I encourage them to come over to cybersecurity. So I would go out and I would do a presentation that would literally present a whole lot of different views of, do you see yourself in this person in this career? Please come to cybersecurity. You're the kind of person I want to be a coworker with. And if you are the kind of coworker I wanted to have, and you didn't come to cybersecurity, I just lost. And so it is simultaneously self-motivated, but not.
Mm-hmm.
But the other side of it was, it took so many, the story I hear from everyone in IT and cybersecurity is it takes so long to get into the career. And in cybersecurity, we have this problem where unless you have 5 years experience, you can't get a job in cybersecurity. And even then it's entry level.
Mm.
And I thought, this is nonsense. You can graduate from an education program and then begin to participate as a practitioner and then evolve into a professional. You can, but someone has to take the effort to guide you, to look at what you want to do, to see what you're good at and help you be excellent at it. And then, so my involvement in those programs was basically, I don't want people to have to take 10, 15 years to become a professional in cybersecurity. This is nonsense. Other professionals don't work that way. Engineers graduate from engineering school, then they become a PEng after a given number of years. It's pretty much set up. We don't do that. And I thought, no, we got to. And the starting point is mentorship.
Mm.
No, that's a good point, Michael, and I agree. So actually, that kind of bridges us into the next question about students and new grads. Would mentorship really help for them? I think a resounding yes, but I'm kind of curious to hear, even in the communication field, whether or not that's so much true or not. Kristen.
Yeah, for sure. We've actually kind of been piloting. Last year, we actually piloted for the first time having students enter the mentorship program just in the full capacity with the mentorship. It started actually a little bit in a shorter capacity, but we this year have opened it up to all students. And I've spoken to some chapters. There's chapters of IABC all across Canada, and I was speaking to one of my colleagues in Edmonton, and they completely opened their program up to students as well, and they've found a lot of success with it. And of course, the conversations are going to be a little bit different, but I think it's, like you mentioned, it's really important because you get out of school and you have those issues. The same thing in communications, right? How do you get that experience when you can't get a job because you don't have experience, all that kind of old story. And so I think having someone in the industry who can help you with, and maybe it's building your resume or giving you some advice about how to network or even to volunteer. I think that a student, as you mentioned, could benefit as much, if not more, than someone working in their career. And so we are super welcome to having students in the program as well. And I think they've gotten a lot out of the program. In fact, I believe one of our students from last year has rejoined the program again this year. So I think,
oh, awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. I think student mentorship is a really great opportunity.
Oh, nice.
So I'm suddenly curious. Would you say that like mentorship is a well-established practice for communication professionals, or is it something that your society does because you see a need to encourage it? Like, where in the history, communication as a profession, I mean, I think you're in the same boat where, we've got accountants and engineers and doctors who are all the established ones, but then there's the communications people and the IT people and the records managers, and we're all new professions.
For sure. I know when I was in school, in high school or anything, I love my job and I think it's awesome. And I didn't even know it was a job. It wasn't one of those ones on the list that you learn about. And so, yeah, I would tend to agree with that. Our program is not a new program at IABC, but I think as I kind of mentioned, there's a lot of people who end up in a role where they might be the only communicator in that company, or some people are still, recognizing, like you said, it's some aspects of it are new, like, social media or those types of things. And it can be difficult to maybe sometimes convince your employer or your the higher president or whoever of the company of your value, because it is newer in some respects. And so I think that's an excellent point, and so I think that is needed for sure. I agree with that. Yeah.
I also want to throw out another random question.
Yeah.
So I was attending a conference talk today.
Mm-hmm.
I love COVID for all the conferences being virtual.
Yeah.
I could see so many things I couldn't before. And so this talk was about how do you recruit and retain talent for millennials, and it was specific to cybersecurity. And one of the thoughts they had is they say, I don't think this is restricted to millennials, but that was their focus.
Yeah.
Is they're like, well, millennials want to work for a company or in a role where they feel they make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And they suggested encouraging reverse mentorship, where the millennials then have a supportive or coaching role into other non-millennial employees, giving them that ability, even if the other aspects of their job don't do that. And one of the examples was one that you just used, like social media, communication stuff, use of mobile technology. And I mean, I'm looking for a reaction either from you, Kirsten, or from Moro. I'm just throwing this one out there.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
I think role reversal is not a bad thing to try. You never know, right? I mean, I feel like I'm somewhere in between, right? Do I use a whole lot of social media? I pretty much have reserved myself to LinkedIn, just because there's just too much noise on Twitter for me. Things like TikTok are like, it's amusing for about 10 minutes, and then I just like, oh, okay, that's just a stupid animal video. I've got better things to tackle. But I don't think it's a bad idea. I mean, maybe the mentorship needs to be like more focused, and in certain areas, obviously, like social media definitely applies. But I think that there's value in also, how do I communicate with a millennial? Because I think people of my generation are having a tough time understanding what it is they need, or at least we may misunderstand what they need. So really, I mean, communication goes both ways. So I think it's not a bad idea, but it would definitely require some structure around it, I feel. So you can just put a mentee and just, or a millennial, just say, hey, go teach this guy how to use Facebook. Like that would just be, I think, dangerous. So.
Yeah, we have, so as part of our program, like I mentioned, we have a kickoff event. We try to include some professional development types of activities in those. So we've had speakers in that. And that it's interesting, Michael, because we had one speaker who said, a lot of people bring in these young minds that are straight out of school, and they've got new ideas, or they've got maybe a pulse on some things that we haven't been privy to, that kind of thing, and that we bring them into our workplace and we try to train them into doing what we do, and we say, this is how we do it, and this is the way that you go about this. And she says, you actually lose a lot of value doing that. Of course, you have to teach them how to be in the workplace, but you have these people who have just come out of school, and we've all had people who are trying to tell you to do something, and you're like, oh, I've been doing this for a while, so I kind of get that. But at the same time, sometimes we discount those opinions because we're supposed to be teaching them the ropes, and I completely agree. I mean, I think that's a really interesting point that person raised, and that was the same thing that had happened in our session, which was that while you're teaching, don't discount that those people are coming in with some new ideas and some new learnings as well. And so I think that could be a really interesting approach for sure.
I remember one of my favorite moments was in my last job. There was a guy I recruited straight out of technical school, was not just working for me, but I was mentoring him, and I would interrupt him all the time. He would talk, and then I would interrupt him, and then just launch into a tirade, as the worst of mentors do. And one day, about 2 years in, I start launching into correcting him on something, and he keeps interrupting me, and then basically kind of pushes me aside, goes to a whiteboard, and starts drawing. And I was like, "Oh dear God, I am an ass." He is so. I just stop interrupting this guy because his interruptions are more valuable than yours. And I don't know if that's what people mean by reverse mentorship, but at that moment, it really became a mentorship isn't just about teaching people or accelerating their career. It is about a dialogue about succeeding in our goals.
Yeah, and you don't always control where that right answer comes from, and just, it's humbling that sometimes that comes from the person that you're supposed to be teaching, right?
Well, I also learned a lesson that day that there's a difference between teaching, coaching, and mentorship, in the sense that I had to stop teaching and start listening more, because he had progressed to this point that the only way for him to achieve his goals was for me to listen with much more depth to see where he had gone, because he was now taking leaps and strides on his own.
Which is where you want to get people to. So it sounds like you did a good job mentoring him.
Yeah.
But see, then again, I mean, that also helped you with some self-reflection, right? As a mentor. So, I mean, you obviously got something out of it, right? So
I learned to be less of a jackass.
Wow. You learn to, take a step back and realize, oh, all of a sudden my Padawan has become an Obi-Wan Kenobi and ready to be a master himself, right? So sorry, I throw in the geek references once in a while. So so here's a question while we have everyone here. So let's say that there is no formal program, that maybe I'm in a totally different field, and my network is just not in the same field. Like, I took a subject, and I'm, maybe I'm not even in a city where, there's a whole heck of a lot of opportunities. What kind of advice would you impart to a new grad in trying to either A, find a mentor, or B, try to, I guess, get started in that industry somehow? Kristen.
Yeah, for sure. The one thing I think was really interesting, and I just wanted to bring that up about your question, is the location aspect. And I think, especially you guys in, the IT space, we all know that we've always had the capacity to share amongst, we're not nearly as confined by our location as we used to be. But I think with, everyone being at home and doing a lot more digital, even us, we're starting to offer, like, we've always been so city centric. And now, we're advertising. If we have an education session, it's being advertised, to the entire group, across the world. It's the International Association. So we're advertising on the international level. So I think when you say that, it's interesting because, you're not nearly as confined by your location. So if you find someone interesting who's not in your city, that's not the worst thing in the world either. But on top of that, your question about finding somebody, I think keeping your eyes open is a good thing. I think a lot of the times, Michael said he's been taking part in a lot of webinars and such. A lot of the times, I was just in a webinar the other day, and at least a couple of the speakers said, if you want to continue the conversation, reach out to me, let's have a chat. And so maybe your mentor, it doesn't have to be someone that you now are meeting with once a week or once a month forever, but you take people up on those types of opportunities. A lot of the times you hear that and you go, oh yeah, you want to whatever.
Well, and sorry, I'm going to interrupt. I'm going to be a jackass like Michael, but no, I'm just kidding.
Perfect.
But I think there's a lot of new grads that are, especially this new generation of students that are graduating, that are kind of stuck in this rut. They just don't know how to get started. And, I actually have a friend today that I met this morning, and I gave him the advice. I said, what have you done? And he goes, well, I've thrown out 100 resumes. I tried to network, but, the people I networked with, they've gotten laid off. And I said, is that all you've done? And he goes, well, what else am I supposed to do? And I said, well, honestly, there's a huge thing called LinkedIn. And you know what? If you have not talked to 100 strangers that are in the field you're trying to get into, and hit them up and ask them, hey, can I buy a copy and can I just pick your brain? Like, how did you get into the industry? Like, how did you progress into it? How did you get to where you are? All it takes is a half hour to really understand how they got into the industry. And maybe you can learn something from them, right? Yeah. And I said, and again, like yourself, Kristen, when you mentioned that, we're not really constrained by geography these days. So really, what's stopping you from, reaching out to, if you're a teacher that's, maybe teaching in England or something, and maybe they're, passionate about history, and English history is what you want to teach. So why would you not reach out to that person and ask them for the advice? I would think human nature says that, it's worthwhile asking, because if someone came to me and say, hey, Moro, I'm looking to be an SE. I don't know how to get started. What do I need to do? What are the pitfalls? What are some of the shortcomings? But what are some of the benefits and, the aha moments that you've had? I'm more than willing to, even a complete stranger, if you've got the gumption to ask me, I'm willing to spend, half hour of my time, an hour of my time, help you out. And, maybe even if you were to ask me in certain capacity, maybe I'll even, be willing to mentor you in some way. Right. For sure. I guess that's kind of my thinking as well. Right. You got nothing to lose other than, shedding a little bit of humility, getting rid of a little bit of shyness, and putting yourself out there and being just a little bit vulnerable, right? So.
Oh, for sure. Well, and I mean, it's nothing but a compliment. If someone reaches out to you and says, you have a great resume, or I like your career, I mean, even if they don't have the time, it's nothing but a compliment.
Exactly. So if anything, I want to point out to all you recent grads, if you think all you can do is send out a resume and apply for jobs cold, that's not the only thing you can do. There's a lot more you can do. There's a whole, community. And again, Calgary in its entirety is a community. If you have not reached out to 100 people, in the last month, then, get started, right? Start with maybe even 5 people a week. Just, go on LinkedIn, find a person that's doing the job you're wanting to do, and maybe ask them, right? Just ask them for a half hour at a time. Buy them coffee, buy them lunch, whatever. It'll be the cheapest investment you'll make, and you'll get so much benefit out of it. So, sorry, that's my diatribe.
And I would add that, as established professionals, you might not be prepared to mentor others, but you can introduce younger professionals or students to other people. And that's a really valuable thing to help them network. Let's face it, we work in a profession that's full of people who tend to be introverted. Social anxiety is a common factor in IT. And so helping introduce people gives them more opportunities. And even if it's not mentorship, that's helpful. Jason Lee, who's in our audience tonight, he just got himself a job in cybersecurity. And, I felt that one of the things I could do for him was introduce him here, there, and everywhere. And then before you know it, he's developing his own networking, just like the same way Moro was saying, reaching out to people, trying to get to know them. It's a really powerful method.
I agree. So I think we're going to start to wrap up, but there's one thing that I kind of skipped and I left for the end. And the reason why I did, because I wanted to give Kristen as much time as she can handle, or she would like to use, to really talk about her organization that she's a part of. So it's IABC. So I know there's questions on our agenda that ask you, what does IABC mentorship do? How do you apply, and things of that nature. So I want to pass that torch off to you, Kristen, and give you that time to just pump up IABC, describe what you guys do, how you apply, et cetera, and just and then we'll come back and we'll finish up. So,
okay, great. Thank you for the opportunity. So, I mean, I don't know how many communicators we have watching at the moment, but I would invite anybody to look into what they have available to them with their community, because I know for me, joining IABC has been absolutely life-changing for my career. So it's the International Association of Business Communicators, and there are chapters all over the world. And so we're here in Calgary. There are nearly 100 chapters all over the world. So it's neat to be a part of a community that big. And as I mentioned, there are opportunities to network all over the world. But our mentorship program itself, as I mentioned, it's open now. It's open until Sunday, but you do need to be a member of IABC to be part of the program. Luckily, IABC, it's membership month right now. And so we've been around actually for over 50 years. And so as part of that, they're offering 50% off of international dues. So right now, if you were ever thinking of joining, would be a great time. And so, but if you are interested in the mentorship program, all the information is there that you guys are showing on the website there. You can apply to be a mentor. You can apply to be a mentee. There's a form that kind of helps you organize your thoughts about what you might be looking for in the program. But just in a general sense, I would really encourage, if you are someone watching right now and you're interested in mentorship, maybe have a look at what's available to you within your profession, because as I mentioned, it's, you do meet some people in your day-to-day life, but I've had the opportunity to meet all kinds of communications people across the city, and that networking opportunity has actually been really beneficial. So whatever area you're in, I would really encourage you to see if there's an opportunity like that, because it's really beneficial. And within your friend group or whoever, you might not have all people who, I certainly don't have a lot of people in my network personally that do the profession that I do. And so this has been a really great way to really just bounce ideas off of people, because mentorship's important, but having peers to communicate with is also super important. So I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you guys today about that.
Yeah, no, likewise, we appreciate you coming on our show, and appreciate you spending time out of your your personal schedule to talk about this great topic. So with that in mind, I think we're on target, right, Michael? We've been trying to be on target so that we get our live streams within about the hour range, because sometimes we can go a little long. But with that, I'm going to ask Kristen for, and I do this from time to time with our guests, and I ask for just one piece of advice or one golden nugget of something, like to impart into our to the viewers about maybe either A, trying to find a mentor, or why what they should be looking for in a mentor. But maybe just one little piece of advice to help that person kind of get ahead in their career.
For sure. The one thing that I don't think I've touched upon that I just wanted to say is that I think that once you get into your mentorship partnership or get with, find a mentor that you are looking to get information from, just be ready to let your guard down almost right away. Like I felt like in my first mentorship partnership, you're a little bit anxious to show your work or to talk about things honestly. And I think the sooner you get down to business, the better off you'll be.
Couldn't agree more. And honestly, I think that's again, we've touched on it before in a previous live stream. A part of being genuine. If you can let your guard down and kind of show your true self with faults in hand, I think people genuinely, well, not just genuinely, but they appreciate it and they recognize it, and I think they gravitate towards wanting to help you, because you're just, it's like you're kind of bearing your soul, but at the same time, it's like, hey, this is me. I'm human. I need some help. Can you help me? And it's like, yes, of course. Absolutely. Why wouldn't I help you, right? So, absolutely. Okay, Michael, we're just barely over. So yeah, if you want to start wrapping up.
All right. Thank you so much, Kristen. Hang around for a second. I'm going to put you in the behind the scenes, and we'll talk to you just after the live stream ends. Moro, we have a couple things to remind the audience of.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
When's our next live stream?
I believe it's slated for, I think it's November 29th. So it's about 2 weeks from now. All
right. Do you remember the topic?
Not off the top of my head. Sorry. I know it's because there's new scheduling and whatnot, Plus, we also have we're going to be at B-Sides Calgary. We're going to be doing a live stream through there, so be prepared for that. That is sometime in November. I believe it's the second week of November. So we've got a few things on the go. So
yeah, the B-Sides thing's very exciting because you won't see us on the schedule because one of the sponsors decided not to use their sponsor slot to do a talk about their product. They wanted, in the spirit of B-Sides, to let it be community-led. And that's Nahid is in our audience. Hello. It's his idea. The man is a genius. And he said, hey, Moro and Mike, do you want to take this? And we said, oh my God, that is a great idea.
So I thought, we'll announce it. So we're going to tackle the subject of explaining, I think, risk, right? Or trying to convey risk to stakeholders so that they understand essentially why or why not they should do or take a certain path that we might recommend. So
and it's also cool. Now I'm just rambling, but because the B-Sides organizers agreed to let us use our live stream platform to stream to their live stream platform, which I don't.
I agree.
They're cool geeks. So we have a panel of really cool people. Debbie from the University of Calgary, Andrew from Wawanese Insurance, and Doug from Little Potato Company, who are all amazing in their own right, and a very diverse panel to help us figure out as technical people how to deal with the challenges of explaining threats and risk to non-technical people. Yeah. All right. With that, let's say goodnight. Moro, any parting words?
You know what? If you haven't already, start researching about mentorship. And you know what? As always, stranger is just a friend you haven't met yet.
Oh, I cannot top that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. And until next time.